The morning sky burned orange and red. It was not the usual sunrise that Tom Miller had seen every day for the last 40 years of his life. This was different. This was fire. This was the end. Tom stood on the rooftop of his small house on the outskirts of Pine City, his eyes fixed on the horizon where dark shapes moved against the burning sky. The radio beside him crackled with desperate reports from around the world. They had all seen the ships 3 days ago, massive dark vessels that had appeared suddenly in orbit around Earth. "This is not happening," Tom whispered to himself, clutching his old Navy cap in his weathered hands. His years as a naval engineer had taught him about warfare, about ships, about weapons. Nothing had prepared him for this. The alien vessels were called the Dominion by news reporters, a name that seemed to fit their purpose. They came without warning or message. Their first attack had disabled every major military installation across the globe in less than 2 hours. The radio announcer's voice shook as he reported, "London has gone dark. Tokyo is under attack. Washington, D.C. reports complete destruction of defensive capabilities." The list went on. Tom watched as smaller ships broke away from the larger vessels. They moved with impossible speed, descending toward major cities. Pine City might be small, but the military base 10 miles east made it a target. He should run. That would be the smart thing to do. But where? Reports said nowhere was safe. The ground shook as the first explosions hit the military base. Even from this distance, Tom could see the massive fireballs rising into the sky. The base housed some of Earth's most advanced weapons systems. They were supposed to protect people. They were supposed to be unbeatable. The phone lines had gone dead hours ago, but Tom's old emergency radio still picked up some channels. He heard the desperate voice of Colonel Barnes from the base. "They've penetrated all defenses. Our missiles don't even reach them before I don't know what they're doing, but they're just disappearing. We're launching everything we've got." Tom watched as streaks of light rose from the base, missiles, hundreds of them, launching toward the alien ship hovering above. The missiles approached the dark vessel, then simply vanished. No explosions, no impacts, they simply ceased to exist. "God help us," Tom murmured. The response was swift and terrible. A beam of blinding blue light shot down from the ship, so bright that Tom had to shield his eyes. When he looked back, the entire military base was gone. In its place was a perfect crater, edges still glowing red. 20,000 soldiers, gone in seconds. Tom's legs gave way beneath him, and he sank to his knees on the rooftop. Across the world, this same scene was playing out. Humanity's most powerful weapons, their strongest defenses, were nothing against this enemy. His radio crackled again. This time it was the president's voice, tired and defeated. "My fellow Americans, my fellow citizens of Earth. After consulting with world leaders and military advisors, we have made the difficult decision to offer our unconditional surrender to the forces known as the Dominion. To continue fighting would mean the loss of countless more innocent lives. I ask all military personnel to lay down their arms. I ask all citizens to comply with any directives issued by these visitors. We will survive this. Humanity will endure. But first, we must live through today." Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. Surrender? The world's most powerful nations, giving up after just 3 days? But as he looked at the smoking crater that had been a state-of-the-art military base, he understood. This wasn't a war. It was an extermination. The days that followed were chaos. The Dominion ships positioned themselves above major cities worldwide. From these ships came smaller craft carrying the first Dominion beings humans had seen up close. They were tall, at least 7 feet in height, with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in sunlight. Their faces had features similar to humans. Eyes, though larger and entirely black. A mouth-like opening, 2 ear-like structures, but arranged in proportions that made them deeply unsettling to look at. Tom saw them for the first time a week after the initial attack. They had established a regional control center in what had been Pine City's town hall. The streets were patrolled by floating mechanical orbs that could stun or kill with beams, similar to what had destroyed the military base just on a smaller scale. He stood in line with hundreds of other residents waiting to be processed. Each person was scanned, had blood taken, and was issued an identification chip embedded painlessly into their wrist. No one resisted. They had all seen what happened, to those who did. "Move forward," said a mechanical voice from one of the orbs. "Present arm for identification processing." Tom did as instructed, watching as a thin needle extended from the orb and pressed into his wrist. There was a slight pinch, then nothing. A small bump remained under his skin. "Thomas Miller," the mechanical voice announced. "Former military, engineer. Assignment: Technical Maintenance Staff, Sector 7, report tomorrow at sunrise." Tom looked up in surprise. "How did you—" "Your skills have been cataloged. You will serve the Dominion by maintaining basic infrastructure. Resistance will result in termination. Compliance will be rewarded with rations and shelter." That night, Tom sat in his dark house. Power had been cut to most residential areas, thinking about what had happened. The most powerful militaries in the world had been defeated in days. The most advanced weapons humans had created might as well have been sticks and stones against the Dominion technology. For the first time in his life, Tom understood what it meant to be truly helpless. Humanity had always prided itself on its adaptability, its intelligence, its fighting spirit. None of that mattered against an enemy so far beyond them. In the distance, he could see the lights of the Dominion Control Center. They had already begun transforming it, adding structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, technology that defied understanding. "We were never ready," Tom whispered to himself. "All our wars, all our progress. We thought we were so advanced." As he looked up at the night sky, now permanently changed by the presence of the massive Dominion ships, Tom wondered if there was any hope left for humanity. They were conquered, occupied, reduced to servants in a matter of days. But deep inside, something stubborn refused to accept this new reality. It wasn't a plan, or even an idea yet. Just a tiny spark of the human spirit that had carried his species through ice ages, plagues, and their own destructive tendencies. Tomorrow he would report for duty. Tomorrow he would begin his life under Dominion rule. Tomorrow he would appear broken and obedient. And tomorrow he would begin to watch, to learn, to understand these conquerors. Because if there was one thing Tom knew about humans, it was that they were at their most dangerous when they appeared to be at their weakest. The war had proven humanity helpless. But perhaps, just perhaps, that was not the end of the story. 6 months had passed since the day the sky burned. 6 months of living under Dominion rule. 6 months of Tom Miller keeping his head down, eyes open, and mind alert. The morning alarm sounded, a harsh electronic pulse that the Dominion had installed in every human dwelling. Tom rubbed his tired eyes and rose from his small bed. His tiny apartment was one of hundreds in what the Dominion called Worker Housing Block 12. It had once been a hotel before they converted it. "Another day serving our overlords," Tom muttered as he splashed cold water on his face. Hot water was a luxury not permitted to human workers. He put on his gray maintenance uniform and checked his wrist chip. It glowed slightly, showing he had 30 minutes to report to his station at the regional hub. Being late meant reduced rations or worse. As Tom walked through the quiet streets of what used to be Pine City, he noted the changes. The Dominion structures had grown like metallic plants, twisting upward and connecting to create a network above the human buildings. Their technology seemed almost alive, adapting and growing rather than being constructed. Floating security. Orbs hovered at street corners, their black lenses tracking every human movement. Tom kept his pace steady and his eyes down, the picture of a broken, obedient worker. But Tom wasn't broken, not inside. "Morning, Tom," whispered a voice as he passed an alley. It was Lisa, a former doctor now working in the Dominion medical facility. Her once bright eyes were now shadowed with exhaustion, but they still held a spark of defiance. "Morning," Tom replied quietly, not breaking his stride. "Meeting tonight?" "Yes, Jack has news. Be careful today." Tom gave a slight nod and continued walking. Lisa was part of what they called the Whisper Network. Humans who shared information, watched the Dominion, and kept hope alive. It wasn't resistance, not yet. Just people refusing to surrender their minds even when their bodies had no choice. The regional hub loomed ahead, a massive structure that pulsed with blue energy. It had once been the town hall, but the Dominion had transformed it beyond recognition. Tom scanned his wrist chip at the entrance and was admitted inside. "Worker Miller, report to Section 14 for pipe maintenance," announced the automated system. Tom nodded and headed toward the lower levels. His job involved maintaining the human-built infrastructure that the Dominion still used: water systems, basic electrical components, ventilation. They could have built their own superior versions, but the Dominion seemed to prefer making humans maintain their own outdated systems. It was efficient and humiliating at the same time. But it gave Tom access. Access was information. Information might someday be power. In Section 14, Tom opened a maintenance panel and began checking the water flow regulators. As he worked, he listened to the Dominion guards nearby. They spoke in their own language, a series of clicks and humming tones, but occasionally used translation devices when addressing human workers. One guard approached, towering over Tom. Like all Dominion beings, it was nearly 7 feet tall with shimmering gray-blue skin and those disturbing black eyes. "Worker, increase water pressure to level 3, it commanded through its translator. "Yes, sir," Tom replied, keeping his voice flat. "May I ask why?" "The system is calibrated for optimal." "Do not question. Increase pressure." Tom adjusted the controls. "Done, sir." The guard moved away, but not before Tom noticed something strange. It seemed nervous, glancing repeatedly at a data pad it carried. This wasn't the first time Tom had noticed the Dominion soldiers acting oddly. They were supposed to be the conquerors, yet sometimes they behaved like they were the ones under threat. Later that day, while repairing a ventilation shaft, Tom found himself able to overhear a conversation between two high-ranking Dominion officers. He couldn't see them, but their voices carried through the metal ductwork. "The orbital scanners have detected no sign of it," one voice said. "They will come. The Harbinger always follows the same pattern," replied another, deeper voice. "We must prepare the defense grid. This planet's resources must be protected. The humans are resistant to control. They will be difficult to use when the time comes. They will serve or die. Their weakness made them easy to conquer. Their bodies will make adequate shields." Tom froze, barely breathing. Shields? Against what? And what was the Harbinger? He memorized everything he heard before continuing his work, careful not to make a sound. That night, after his shift, Tom made his way to the meeting place, the basement of an abandoned library. The Dominion had little interest in human books, considering them primitive and worthless. This made the library one of the few safe places to gather. Jack was already there when Tom arrived. A former communications technician, Jack now worked cleaning the Dominion's communication arrays, a tight job they thought too menial for their own kind. "You're late," Jack said as Tom slipped inside. "Had to take a longer route, more patrols tonight." Lisa arrived moments later, followed by 3 others: Mike, a former police officer, Dora, who worked in food distribution, and Pete, who had access to the Dominion's waste disposal system. "I've noticed something," Tom began, keeping his voice low. "The Dominion soldiers are acting strange, nervous. I overheard them talking about something called the Harbinger and preparing defenses." Jack nodded. "That matches what I've seen. They've been redirecting communication arrays toward the outer solar system, looking for something." "They're scared," Mike added. "I can see it when I'm assigned to guard duty transport. These aren't the actions of confident conquerors." Lisa pulled out a small notebook, paper being one technology the Dominion didn't bother to monitor. "I've been documenting behavior changes in the command staff. Increased stress indicators, sleep cycle disruptions. Something's happening." "There's more," Tom said. "I heard them say humans would make adequate shields. Whatever's coming, they plan to use us against it." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. "So we're not just slaves," Dora whispered. "We're cannon fodder." Pete, who rarely spoke, cleared his throat. "I found something yesterday." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metallic object. It was in the disposal unit from the command center. Tom took the object. It was a data storage device, similar to the ones the Dominion used but damaged. "Can we read it?" "I've been working on that," Jack said. "I might be able to connect it to some old human tech. The systems are different, but I've been studying their technology." As they discussed plans to decode the device, Tom's mind raced. The Dominion weren't just conquerors. They were running from something that terrified them enough to seize Earth as a defensive position. "Whatever's coming," Tom said quietly. "It might be our only chance." The meeting ended, and they slipped away one by one, returning to their assigned housing before curfew. As Tom walked through the dark streets, he looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the Dominion ships that still orbited Earth, something was coming, something the mighty Dominion feared. For the first time since the invasion, Tom felt something close to hope. Not because he believed whatever was coming would be their savior. It might be even worse than the Dominion. But because fear made even the strongest enemies vulnerable. And vulnerability could be exploited. Humanity had been proven weak and helpless in war. But perhaps their strength lay elsewhere, in watching, waiting, and being underestimated. Tomorrow, Tom would return to fixing pipes and pretending to be broken. But tonight he allowed himself to dream of freedom. The alarm blared throughout the Dominion Regional Hub, a sound Tom had never heard before. It was different from the usual signals, higher pitched, more urgent. Something was happening. Tom was in the middle of repairing an electrical circuit when the first alarm sounded. Moments later, Dominion soldiers rushed through the corridors, their normally measured movements now quick and disorganized. "All human workers return to quarters immediately," announced the automated system. "This is not a drill. Return to quarters." But Tom didn't move toward the exit. Instead, he slipped into a maintenance shaft, one he had discovered during his months of quiet exploration. The narrow passage ran between walls, allowing access to critical systems and providing an excellent hiding place. Through a small vent, Tom watched as Dominion commanders gathered in the central command room. Their translator devices were active, allowing him to understand their frantic conversation. "The object has entered the solar system," said one commander, its black eyes fixed on a large display screen. "Speed is beyond anything we've recorded." "Size?" asked another. "Massive, at least twice the size of our largest vessel." A third commander, with markings Tom recognized as indicating higher rank, stepped forward. "Send the alert to all Earth stations. Move defense platforms to outer orbit positions. Prepare the human containment areas." Tom felt his heart race. Was this the harbinger they had feared? For weeks, the Whisper network had been piecing together information. Jack had partially decoded the damaged data device, revealing fragments of information about something the Dominion called the Judgment. Whatever was approaching, the Dominion had encountered it before, and it had not gone well for them. As Tom watched through the vent, the main screen displayed an image that made even the Dominion commanders step back. A massive vessel, unlike anything Tom had ever seen, was visible at the edge of the solar system. It didn't look like the Dominion ships with their angular metallic designs. This vessel was smooth, almost organic in appearance, glowing with a soft blue light. "It's them," whispered one commander. "The Harbinger has found us again." Tom needed to get this information to the others. Carefully, he backed away from the vent and moved through the maintenance shaft toward an exit he knew would be less guarded during an emergency. Outside, chaos had erupted. Dominion soldiers were herding humans toward safety zones, really just containment areas where they could be easily controlled, or, Tom now realized, used as shields. The floating security orbs were everywhere, stunning anyone who resisted. Tom ducked behind buildings, using his knowledge of the patrol patterns to avoid detection. He needed to reach the library basement When he finally arrived, Lisa and Jack were already there, along with several others he hadn't seen before. "They're here," Tom said, catching his breath. "The Harbinger, it's a ship, massive. The Dominion are terrified." Jack nodded grimly. "It's all over their communication channels. They're calling all ships back to Earth orbit." "We decoded more of the data," Lisa added, spreading papers on a table. "The Harbinger isn't just one ship. It's the advanced scout for something called the Guardians. The Dominion have encountered them before on other worlds they tried to conquer." "What are they?" Tom asked. "We don't know exactly," Jack replied. "But the Dominion fear them enough to abandon other conquered planets to escape them." The ground suddenly shook beneath their feet. A distant roar filled the air. "They've started firing," Mike said from near a boarded window. "The orbital platforms are attacking the approaching ship." They all fell silent, listening to the distant sounds of weapons fire. It was impossible to tell what was happening without seeing it. Then Lisa's small radio crackled to life. She had modified it to pick up Dominion communication frequencies, a dangerous but valuable tool. "All units, defensive failure," came a panicked voice through the static. "Orbital platforms 3, 7, and 12 have been destroyed. The vessel has not returned fire. Repeat, the vessel has not returned fire. It continues approach to Earth orbit." Tom and the others exchanged glances. The Dominion's most powerful weapons, the same ones that had decimated Earth's military in hours, were ineffective against this new arrival. "Does that mean they're on our side?" asked Dora hopefully. "Don't count on it," Tom cautioned. "Whatever they are, they're powerful enough to scare the Dominion. That doesn't make them our friends." The radio crackled again. "All commanders, priority alert. The vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies. It's using human languages." Tom grabbed the radio. "What did they say? What languages?" As if, in answer, every electronic device in the room came to life at once. The radio, an old television in the corner, even the small tablet Jack had repaired. All displayed the same message, cycling through languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, and dozens more. The message was simple. "We come for what was stolen. We are ready." "Ready?" Pete whispered. "Is that their name?" "Or a warning?" Mike suggested. Before they could discuss further, another tremor shook the building. Stronger this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. "We need to see what's happening," Tom decided. The old observatory on the hill might still have telescopes. Despite the danger, they agreed it was necessary. Moving in small groups to avoid detection, they made their way across town to the abandoned observatory. The Dominion had little interest in human scientific facilities, considering them primitive. The main telescope was intact. Jack, who had some experience with astronomy, quickly adjusted it to focus on the sky. "Look," he gasped, stepping back to let the others see. Tom peered through the eyepiece. What he saw took his breath away. The Dominion ships were in disarray, some attempting to flee, others firing uselessly at the massive vessel that now hung in Earth orbit. The vessel, Ready, as it had called itself, was beautiful in a strange way, its surface shifting with patterns of light. As they watched, smaller craft began to detach from Ready, descending toward Earth. Unlike the aggressive approach of the Dominion invasion, these craft moved slowly, deliberately. "They're landing outside the city," Lisa said, watching through binoculars from the observatory window. The radio they had brought suddenly came alive again, this time with the voice of the highest-ranking Dominion commander. "All units, defensive positions around the central archives. The Guardians must not reach the artifact storage. Use human shields if necessary." "Artifact storage?" Tom repeated. "What artifacts?" "Whatever it is, it's important enough for them to make a last stand," Jack said. "And it's in the central building where you work, Tom." Tom thought quickly. He knew that building better than anyone in their group, including the hidden maintenance passages. "We need to get there before the Dominion sets up their defenses," he decided. "If these new arrivals are looking for something the Dominion stole, I want to know what it is. It could be a trap." Mike warned. What if both sides are hostile to humans? Tom nodded. That's why only I should go. The rest of you should try to warn as many people as possible to stay hidden until we know more. Lisa grabbed his arm. That's suicide, Tom. Maybe, he admitted. But for the first time since they arrived, the Dominion are afraid. This might be our only chance to learn why. As the others reluctantly agreed to his plan, Tom looked out the window at the chaos unfolding across the city. Dominion soldiers were abandoning outer posts, rushing to defend something at the center. In the distance, strange craft with glowing blue hulls descended from the sky. Whatever happened next would change everything. Again. Be careful, Lisa said as Tom prepared to leave. He nodded, a grim smile on his face. Humanity was too weak to win the war, but maybe we're not too weak to pick the winning side. With that, Tom slipped out into the night, heading toward the heart of the Dominion Control Center as the sky above filled with the light of battle. Tom pressed his body against the cold wall of the maintenance shaft, barely breathing as a group of Dominion soldiers rushed past the thin metal panel that hid him. The central hub was in chaos. Alarms blared continuously, and the usual orderly movement of the alien conquerors had dissolved into panicked activity. Using the narrow maintenance passages he had mapped during months of careful observation, Tom made his way deeper into the Dominion Command Center. His destination was the lower level, an area normally forbidden to human workers. According to the radio transmission they had intercepted, something called artifact storage was located there, something important enough for the Dominion to make their last stand. A violent tremor shook the building, nearly causing Tom to lose his balance. The Dominion's defensive weapons were firing at something, and the impacts were getting closer. Whatever battles were happening in orbit had clearly moved to the ground. After navigating through several more passages, Tom reached a ventilation grate that overlooked a large chamber he had never seen before. Carefully, he peered through the slats. The room below was unlike any other Dominion facility, while most of their technology was angular and metallic. This chamber contained dozens of glass containers arranged in concentric circles. Inside each container was an object that glowed with soft light. Some appeared to be simple stones, others complex mechanical devices, but all radiated an energy Tom could almost feel. Dominion commanders stood in defensive positions around the room, weapons ready. Their usual calm arrogance was gone, replaced by what Tom recognized as fear. They're almost here, said one commander. Outer defenses have fallen. The human shields are in position? Asked another. Yes. 500 humans have been placed between us and their approach route. Tom's stomach clenched. 500 people forced to stand between two alien forces with no protection. He had to do something. Before he could move, a new tremor shook the building, stronger than before. The lights flickered, and then a section of wall simply disappeared. Not exploded, not broken, but seemingly erased from existence. Through this perfect opening walked beings unlike any Tom had seen before. They were humanoid in shape, but taller than humans, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Their faces were oddly familiar. 2 eyes, nose, mouth, but proportioned differently, giving them an uncanny appearance that was both alien and somehow recognizable. Guardians, whispered one of the Dominion commanders, the translation device, making its voice sound strangled with fear. The lead Guardian stepped forward. You were warned, it said in perfect, unaccented English. This sector was protected. These people were protected. We claim this world by right of conquest, replied the highest-ranking Dominion commander. The primitives could not defend themselves. And yet you fear them enough to study their past? The Guardian said, gesturing to the glowing containers. You fear their potential. Tom strained to see better. What were those objects? Why did the Dominion have them? The standoff was interrupted by weapons fire. A desperate Dominion soldier had fired at the Guardians. The energy beam struck a Guardian but seemed to pass through it without effect. The response was immediate. A pulse of blue light swept through the room, disabling the Dominion weapons. Your choice has been made, the lead guardian said. You will leave this world now, or you will not leave at all. The Dominion commander hesitated, then made a signal to its troops. As one, they began to back toward another exit. Tom saw his chance. In the confusion, he pushed open the ventilation grate and dropped into the room, landing behind a row of containment units. Neither the retreating Dominion nor the advancing Guardians noticed him. Once the Dominion had withdrawn, the Guardians approached the glowing containers. Tom remained hidden, watching and listening. The artifacts are intact, one Guardian said. They did not manage to unlock their secrets. Some are missing, noted another. They must have been taken to their ships. The lead Guardian, whose clothing bore markings that suggested rank or importance, surveyed the room. We must secure these immediately, then find the humans they were using as shields. Tom decided to take a risk. He stood up slowly, hands raised. I can help with that. All the Guardians turned to face him, their expressions unreadable. The lead Guardian approached. You are brave or foolish to reveal yourself, it said. Probably both, Tom admitted. My name is Tom Miller. I'm with a group that's been watching the Dominion gathering information. We know where they might have taken those people. The Guardian studied him for a long moment. I am Alan. Alan? Tom couldn't hide his surprise at the ordinary human name. A slight expression that might have been amusement crossed the Guardian's face. It is the closest approximation of my name in your language. It will suffice. Another Guardian approached, carrying one of the glowing artifacts, a small pyramid-shaped object. The genetic key is responding to his presence, it said. Alan's attention sharpened. Interesting. He turned back to Tom. These artifacts are part of your planet's heritage. They were left here long ago, to be discovered when humanity was ready. Ready? Tom repeated. Like your ship's name. Yes. Ready is not just a name. It is a designation. It means the time has come. The time for what? Before Alan could answer, another Guardian approached. The Dominion forces are retreating. To orbit. Their ships are preparing to jump. Let them go, Alan decided. Our priority is the safety of this world and the recovery of the artifacts. He turned back to Tom. You offered help. Will you take me to your leaders? Tom almost laughed. We don't have leaders anymore. The Dominion destroyed our governments. But I can take you to people I trust. As they prepared to leave, Tom pointed to the glowing containers. What are these things? Why did the Dominion want them? Alan picked up a small crystal-like object that pulsed with blue light. These are tools and records left by my people when we visited Earth thousands of years ago. We left them buried, at sites across your world, with markers that would only be revealed when your civilization reached a certain level of development. Your people visited Earth before? Many times. We are caretakers of a sort. We watch over developing worlds, intervening only when necessary. Tom's mind raced. Like now? When the Dominion invaded? We came as soon as we detected their presence in this system. Unfortunately, we were delayed. Something like regret crossed Alan's face. As they made their way out of the chamber, Tom saw the destruction the Guardian's arrival had caused. Not a single shot had been fired at the building itself, only precision strikes against Dominion defenses. They walked through corridors where Dominion technology had been disabled, but human structures remained intact. Outside, Tom led Alan toward the library where he hoped the others would be waiting. As they walked, he saw Guardian vessels hovering above the city, emitting beams of blue light that seemed to be neutralizing Dominion technology. The Dominion said humans were weak, Tom said as they walked. That's why they conquered us so easily. Alan gave him a strange look. The Dominion did not conquer you because you were weak. They conquered you because they feared what you might become. What do you mean? The Dominion builds its empire by conquering worlds with resources or strategic positions. But Earth was different. They came here because their long-range scanners detected energy signatures from our artifacts. When they arrived, they discovered something that frightened them even more. What? Your potential. Human adaptability is unique among the thousands of species we have encountered. Your ability to learn, to change, to overcome obstacles, it is remarkable. The Dominion feared what humans might become if they discovered the tools we left for you. Tom stopped walking, struggling to process this information. You're saying they attacked us not because we were weak, but because they were afraid of us. Precisely. The artifacts were accelerating your development. The Dominion's attack was not just conquest, it was preventative. As they approached the library, Tom saw Lisa and Jack watching from a window. Their eyes widened at the sight of Tom walking alongside a guardian. My friends are inside, Tom said. They'll have questions. As do I, Alan replied. Together, perhaps we can find answers. Tom nodded, a strange mix of hope and apprehension filling him. Whatever happened next would change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe forever. The truth, it seemed, was more complex than anyone had imagined. The old library basement had never been so crowded. Tom sat at a table with Alan and 3 other guardians, while Lisa, Jack, and the rest of the Whisper Network gathered around them. The air was thick with tension and hope. Let me understand this correctly, Jack said, leaning forward. These artifacts were left by your people thousands of years ago to help humanity develop? Alan nodded. His glowing skin cast soft light across the room. We seed promising worlds with tools and knowledge hidden until the civilization reaches a certain development stage. Earth was one such world. But we never found them, Lisa pointed out. You were close, Alan replied. Very close. The artifacts were beginning to react to human proximity. That's what alerted the Dominion to their presence. They arrived, found the artifacts, and realized what they were. Tom ran his hand through his hair, still processing everything he had learned. And they attacked us not because we were easy targets, but because they were afraid of what we might become if we found these tools. Correct. The Dominion builds its empire through conquest, but they especially target worlds where they detect our artifacts. They have been trying to unlock their secrets for centuries. As they spoke, reports came in from other resistance cells across the city. The Dominion forces were in full retreat, rushing to their ships as Guardian vessels secured the planet. But one massive Dominion command ship remained in orbit, refusing to flee. Their supreme commander is on that vessel, Alan explained, pointing to an image one of his fellow Guardians projected onto the wall. They will not leave without attempting to take some of the artifacts. Mike, who had been quiet until now, asked the question on everyone's mind. What happens now? To Earth? To humans? Alan exchanged glances with the other Guardians before answering. That depends partly on you. The damage done by the Dominion can be repaired. We can help restore your world, but its future must be determined by humanity. Sudden alarm sounded from a device on Alan's wrist. The Dominion command ship is moving. They're positioning weapons. On the projected image, they watched as the massive Dominion vessel turned toward Earth. Even from orbit, its weapons could devastate entire cities. They would destroy what they cannot have, one of the other Guardians said grimly. Can your ship stop them? Tom asked. Yes, but not instantly, Alan replied. They could fire at least once before we neutralize them. Jack jumped to his feet. We need to warn everyone to take shelter. There isn't time, Alan said, but there might be another way. He turned to Tom. You understand their systems better than most humans. You've worked in their control center for months. Tom nodded slowly, beginning to see where this was going. The regional hub is connected to their command ship. There's a communication array on the roof. If we could access it, we might be able to disrupt their targeting systems, Alan explained. Not permanently, but long enough for our vessels to move into position. I can get us there, Tom said without hesitation. Through the maintenance passages. Lisa grabbed his arm. It's too dangerous. The Dominion will have soldiers guarding it. Some, yes, Alan agreed. But most have retreated to their ships, and we will not be defenseless. He touched a device on his belt, and a soft blue glow surrounded him briefly. Tom stood up. We need to move fast. Minutes later, Tom led a small team through the city streets. With him were Alan, 2 other Guardians, and Jack, who insisted on coming due to his knowledge of communication systems. Above them, Guardian vessels engaged the remaining Dominion ships in orbit, flashes of light illuminating the night sky. Using the back routes he had memorized during months of careful observation, Tom guided them to the regional hub. As expected, a small group of Dominion soldiers guarded the entrance. They looked desperate, Jack whispered as they observed from cover. Cornered animals are dangerous. Alan made a subtle gesture, and one of the other Guardians moved forward. Before Tom could stop him, the Guardian stepped into the open. The Dominion soldiers fired immediately, energy weapons blazing, but the beams passed through the Guardian harmlessly. It was a hologram. As the soldiers focused on the decoy, Alan touched Tom's shoulder. Now, around the side entrance. They rushed across the open space to a service door Tom had used many times. Inside, the corridors were eerily empty. Most systems were still functioning, running on automatic protocols. This way, Tom said, leading them toward the central lift. The communication array is on the roof. They encountered resistance on the 3rd floor. 4 Dominion soldiers who opened fire as soon as they saw the intruders. Alan raised his hand, and a shield of blue energy absorbed the blasts. The other Guardian responded with a weapon that emitted pulses of light, disabling the soldiers instantly. Non-lethal, Alan explained, seeing Tom's expression. Unlike the Dominion, we prefer not to kill unless absolutely necessary. They continued upward. When they finally reached the roof access, Tom punched in the maintenance code he had memorized months ago. The door slid open. The roof was dominated by a massive dish-shaped array pointing skyward. 2 Dominion technicians worked frantically at a control station. This time there was no chance for subtlety. The technicians saw them immediately and reached for weapons. The Guardian's light weapon flashed twice, and the technicians collapsed. Jack rushed to the control panel. I can work with this, he said, studying the alien technology. It's similar to systems I've cleaned, but I'll need help understanding some of these components. Alan joined him. I can guide you. Tom and the other Guardian kept watch as Jack and Alan worked. Above them, the battle in orbit intensified. The massive Dominion command ship was moving into firing position. They're almost ready to fire, Tom warned, watching the ship's position change on a monitor. Almost there, Jack muttered, his fingers flying over the alien controls. Alan, what does this symbol mean? Power routing. Redirect it to the secondary node. Jack did as instructed. The entire array hummed, then shifted position slightly. Got it, Jack exclaimed. Sending the disruption signal now. The array emitted a pulse of energy that was invisible to the naked eye, but registered on the monitors as a wave spreading upward. It struck the Dominion command ship just as its main weapon was powering up. On the monitor, they watched as the Dominion ship's lights flickered. Its weapon ports closed suddenly, then opened again, but it was too late. 3 Guardian vessels had moved into position surrounding it with a web of blue energy. They're trapped, Alan said. Their weapons are neutralized. A cheer went up from Tom and Jack. The immediate danger was over. As they made their way back, down from the roof, Tom asked the question that had been bothering him. You said the Dominion feared human potential, but we were defeated so easily. What potential could they possibly fear? Alan stopped walking and turned to face him. Look at what you did, Tom. In just 6 months of occupation, you learned their systems, mapped their facility, formed a resistance network, and just now, you helped disable their command ship. A smile crossed his face, the most human expression Tom had seen from him. The Dominion feared your adaptability, your creativity, your determination. They feared that given time and the right tools, humans would surpass them. Is that true? Tom asked. Would we? It is already happening, Alan replied. The artifacts we left were meant to guide you, but even without them, humanity was finding its own path. Your civilization is young, but your potential is remarkable. They emerged from the building to find the sky changing. The Dominion ships were vanishing one by one, jumping away to whatever distant part of the galaxy they called home. Only, Guardian vessels remained glowing softly against the dawn sky. In the days that followed, the full truth emerged. The Guardians helped restore Earth's infrastructure and shared limited technology to help with rebuilding. They explained that they would not simply give humanity all their advanced technology. That would stunt Earth's natural development. But they would remain as allies and guides. The artifacts were returned to their original hiding places, to be discovered when humanity was truly ready for them. And perhaps most importantly, Earth was now known to other civilizations across the galaxy, not as an easy conquest, but as a protected world with untapped potential. Tom stood on the rooftop of his house one evening, watching the sun set just as he had on the day the Dominion arrived. But this time, the ships in the sky were Guardian vessels, preparing to leave now that their work was done. Lisa joined him, looking up at the stars that were beginning to appear. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. "The Dominion?" Tom shook his head. "I don't think so, not just because of the Guardians, but because they now know the truth about us." "What truth?" "That our weakness was never really weakness," Tom said. "Our adaptability, our creativity, our determination to survive. These things the Dominion saw as primitive are actually our greatest strengths." As the Guardian vessels ascended, disappearing one by one into the darkening sky, Tom thought about the future. Earth would rebuild. Humanity would continue to develop, to learn, to grow. And someday, perhaps, they would join the Guardians among the stars. The war had proven humanity helpless, or so it seemed. But the arrival of the ship called Ready had revealed a deeper truth. In the vastness of the galaxy, there were many kinds of strength, and humanity's was just beginning to emerge. Tom smiled as the last Guardian ship vanished from view. The stars seemed brighter.
The war had been going on for so long that most beings in the galaxy could not remember when it started. 3 great powers controlled everything. The Zephyrian Empire ruled from the center, their cities made of pure light floating in space. They believed they were the oldest and wisest race. The Corvan Federation spread like a plague across the outer rim, billions of insect-like creatures working as one mind. The Nexari Collective controlled all the trade routes between worlds, their tentacled ships carrying goods and secrets. For 800 years, these 3 powers had fought and traded and made deals. None could defeat the others completely. The galaxy was stuck in an endless dance of war and peace that never really changed anything. High Commander Zekthar of the Corvan Third Fleet did not care about the old wars today. His ships needed supplies, and his scouts had found an easy target. The blue-green world orbited a yellow star in a quiet part of space. The beings there had not even learned to travel between stars yet. Perfect. "The planet shows signs of civilization," reported his scanning officer through the hive mind link. "But their technology is very basic. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. They still burn chemicals for power." Zekthar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "How many ships do they have in space?" "Only a few small stations around their world. Nothing that could threaten us." The High Commander felt the approval of the hive mind flowing through him. This would be a quick conquest. The Third Fleet would take what they needed and leave. Maybe they would capture some of the aliens to study. The Corvans always needed new slave species. "Send the advanced scouts. Full attack formation. We take their orbital stations first, then land on the surface." 12 Corvan warships moved toward Earth. Each ship was half a mile long, covered in dark armor that had survived battles across the galaxy. Their weapons had destroyed entire fleets. The humans had never seen anything like them. Captain Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's newest battleship. She watched the alien ships appear on her screens and felt her heart racing. This was what they had trained for. But no one really believed it would happen. 12 ships incoming, reported her weapons officer. Design unknown. They're bigger than anything in our database. Communications? Nothing, Captain. They're not responding to any signals. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were moving in perfect formation, like dancers who had practiced the same routine 1,000 times. Earth's defense fleet had only 8 ships, and they were much smaller than the approaching vessels. All ships, this is Morrison, form defensive line around Station Alpha. Do not let them through. The UES Defiance and her sister ships moved to intercept. They had been built using the best human technology. Nuclear engines, railguns that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds, and armor made from materials found in the asteroid belt. The ships were tough and fast, but they had never been tested in real combat. Zekthar watched the primitive ships position themselves between his fleet and their orbital station. "Look at them," he transmitted to his fleet. "They think they can fight us with those tiny vessels." "Should we demand surrender first?" asked his tactical officer. "No. We will destroy them quickly and move on. The hive mind has no time for games." The Corvin ships opened fire. Beams of superheated plasma erupted from their weapons. The same energy that had melted the armor of 100 enemy fleets. The humans would be vaporized in seconds. But something was wrong. The human ships moved. Not the slow, predictable movements that the Corvins expected, but sharp, violent turns that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The plasma beams missed their targets by hundreds of meters. "What are they doing?" Zekthar demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships fired back. But they did not use energy weapons. Instead, solid metal slugs shot out of their railguns at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles hit the lead Corvin ship and punched straight through its armor like it was made of paper. The ship exploded in a burst of flame, and metal! "Impossible," whispered the scanning officer. "Our armor should have stopped those primitive weapons." "Fire again. All ships, concentrate fire." But the humans were already moving. Their ships split up, each one following a different path. Some dove toward the planet, using its gravity to increase their speed. Others shot upward, coming at the Corvins from above. They moved like a pack of hunters, each ship supporting the others but thinking for itself. Captain Morrison felt the G-forces pressing her into her chair as the Defiance pulled a turn that would have killed anyone not wearing the new inertial suits. "Target the big one in the center. Full spread, all railguns." Firing, 6 railgun projectiles hit the Corvin flagship at the same time. The alien ship shuddered and began to leak atmosphere, but it did not explode. Its armor was too thick. "Switch to nuclear warheads," Morrison ordered. "Captain, we're too close for nuclear weapons." "Trust me." The Defiance fired a single missile. It streaked toward the wounded Corvin ship and detonated just as the human vessel shot past at maximum speed. The nuclear explosion caught the alien ship in its blast, but the Defiance was already too far away to be seriously damaged. The Corvin flagship broke apart, its hull cracking like an egg. Zekthar found himself floating in space, his ship's emergency systems having barely managed to get him to an escape pod. Around him, the remains of his fleet drifted in burning pieces. In less than an hour, the humans had destroyed 11 of his 12 ships. How was this possible? The Corvins had fought wars across the galaxy. They knew every weapon, every tactic, every strategy that worked in space combat. But these humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They used their own planet's gravity as a weapon. They fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. They moved their ships independently instead of in formation. They even used nuclear explosions at close range, something that should have destroyed their own vessels. Most strange of all, they seemed to enjoy the chaos. While Corvin ships worked together through the hive mind, the human ships appeared to be making up their tactics as they went along. Each captain was fighting their own battle, but somehow they all worked together perfectly. A human ship approached his escape pod. Zekthar prepared to die with honor, but instead of destroying him, they pulled him inside their ship. The aliens wanted to talk. Captain Morrison studied the insect-like creature sitting across from her in the ship's meeting room. It was about 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the light like jewels. Its chitinous armor was black and silver, and it smelled like machine oil. "You speak our language?" she said, surprised. "The hive mind learns quickly," Zekthar replied, his voice coming through a translation device. "We study the communications. We intercept. Your language is simple. Simple enough to kick your fleet's ass." The Corvin warrior's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Yes, you fight like nothing we have encountered. Why do you not use energy weapons?" "Because these work better." Morrison gestured to the railgun schematic on the wall screen. "Plasma dissipates over distance and can be deflected by magnetic fields. A chunk of metal moving at 30% of light speed doesn't care about your shields." "And the nuclear weapons at close range?" "We built our ships to handle it. You didn't." Zekthar was quiet for a long moment. In the hive mind, he could feel the confusion and fear of his people. They had rules for warfare that had worked for centuries. The humans had apparently decided to ignore all of them. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "Information. Who are you? Where do you come from? And why did you attack us?" "I am High Commander Zekthar of the Corvin Federation. We came seeking supplies and easily conquered territory. Your world appeared primitive and defenseless." "Well, you were half right." Morrison stood and walked to the window that showed Earth hanging in space below them. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take a message back to your people. Tell them that Earth is not interested in being conquered, enslaved, or pushed around. If they want to talk, they can send diplomats. If they want to fight, they can send fleets. But if they attack our civilians again, we'll find their homeworlds and return the favor." "You do not understand," Zekthar said urgently. "The Corvin Federation controls thousands of worlds. Our fleets number in the millions of ships. You cannot fight us all." "Maybe not," Morrison admitted, "but we'll sure as hell try. And based on today's results, I think we'll do better than you expect." She turned back to face him. "There's something else you should know. This isn't even our best fleet. These ships were built 5 years ago. We've got newer designs that make them look like toys. And we're building more every day." Zekthar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The humans had destroyed his fleet with their older ships? What kind of race had the Corvins stumbled across? "I will deliver your message," he said quietly. "Good. Oh, and one more thing." Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Tell your leaders that humans don't like bullies, and we have a very long memory for people who hurt our friends." 3 days later, Zekthar's escape pod was picked up by a Corvin patrol ship near the edge of human space. His report sent shockwaves through the Federation High Command and from there to every corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Emperor received the news in his crystal palace, floating in the void between stars. His energy-based form flickered with interest as he read the translated reports. "Fascinating," he murmured to his advisors. "A new race that destroys Corvin fleets with primitive weapons. We must learn more about these humans." In the Nexari trading halls, tentacled merchants whispered about the profit opportunities. A race that could build new weapons so quickly would need raw materials. There were fortunes to be made, but in the depths of Corvin space, the reaction was different. The hive mind raged at the defeat. No lesser species had ever humiliated them so completely. The humans would pay for their arrogance. War fleets began to gather in the darkness between stars. On Earth, Captain Morrison stood in the briefing room of Luna Base, looking at representatives from every nation. The first contact protocols that diplomats had written decades ago seemed almost laughable now. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we're not alone in the universe, and we just proved that we can defend ourselves. The bad news is that we've probably just started the biggest war in human history. The room erupted in questions, but Morrison held up her hand for silence. The question now is simple. Do we hide behind our star and hope they leave us alone? Or do we step out into the galaxy and show everyone that humanity is not going to be pushed around? Admiral Chen, Morrison's superior, stepped forward. The decision has already been made. We're not hiding. If there's going to be a war, we'll fight it on our terms, not theirs. Morrison nodded and activated the holographic display. It showed star charts that stretched across the local region of the galaxy, marking the territories of the three great powers. Then we better get ready. Because once this news spreads, the entire galaxy is going to want to know what makes humans so dangerous. She paused and looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. And we're going to show them. News of the Corvan defeat reached every corner of the galaxy within days. The three great powers had maintained their balance for so long that any change sent ripples through space. A new player had entered the game, and everyone wanted to know what it meant for them. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire stood in the council chamber of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. His energy form flickered with careful thought as he prepared for humanity's first formal contact with galactic civilization. The reports from the Corvan survivor are difficult to believe, said his military advisor, a younger Zephyrian whose light pulsed with uncertainty. How can such a primitive species destroy an entire fleet? Perhaps they are not as primitive as we assumed, Veltar replied. The Emperor wishes to understand these humans before deciding how to deal with them. If they can be guided properly, they might serve the Empire well. The Zephyrian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Unlike the brutal metal wedges of Corvan design, these vessels appeared to be made of crystallized light itself. They moved silently, their hulls shimmering with energy, patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. President Martinez stood in the reception hall that had been hastily constructed at the United Nations building. Around him, the leaders of Earth waited nervously. This was their first meeting with aliens who came in peace, and nobody was sure what to expect. The Zephyrian ambassador materialized in the center of the room without any visible entrance. His form was roughly humanoid but made entirely of shifting blue and white energy. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. We come as friends and protectors. President Martinez stepped forward, trying not to show how unsettled he felt by the alien's appearance. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We're honored by your visit. Your recent conflict with the Corvans has brought you to our attention, Veltar continued. The galaxy is a dangerous place for young civilizations. The Empire has long served as guardian to lesser species, offering protection and guidance in exchange for loyalty and service. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, frowned at the translator's choice of words. Lesser species. Do not take offense, Veltar said, his form brightening slightly. All races must begin somewhere. The Zephyrians have walked among the stars for 50,000 years. We have learned much about survival in this hostile galaxy. You would benefit greatly from our wisdom. And what would this protection cost us? Asked General Kim. Earth's new head of planetary defense? Very little. You would place your military forces under Empire command, of course. Your industrial output would be directed towards supporting the greater good. Your people would be educated in proper galactic society. In return, you would be safe from threats like the Corvans. The room fell silent. President Martinez looked around at his advisors, seeing the same thought reflected in every face. They were being offered the chance to become servants. We appreciate your offer, Martinez said carefully, but humanity prefers to handle its own defense. Veltar's energy form pulsed with what might have been surprise. You misunderstand the situation. Without Empire protection, the Corvans will return in greater numbers. Your victory was impressive, but it was against a single scout fleet. When they send their war fleets, your small ships will not be enough. Then we'll build bigger ships, said General Kim. With what resources? What knowledge? You are children playing with toys while adults wage war with weapons that could crack planets. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. Maybe we're children, but we're fast learners, and children sometimes see solutions that adults miss. Before Veltar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the building. A new fleet had appeared in Earth's solar system. The Nexari Collective's trade flotilla was impossible to mistake for anything else. Their ships looked like massive sea creatures, all curves and flowing lines, tentacle-like docking arms extended from every surface, and their hulls were covered in advertising displays that flashed in a dozen different languages. Trade Prince Kex Mura had come to Earth personally, his flagship leading a convoy of merchant vessels. Unlike the Zephyrians with their offers of protection or the Corvins with their threats of conquest, the Nexari brought contracts. Humans of Earth, Kex Mura announced as his image appeared on screens around the planet. The Nexari Collective congratulates you on your recent victory. Such military prowess deserves reward, and we are prepared to offer exclusive trading agreements that will benefit both our peoples. The Trade Prince's appearance was unsettling in a different way from the Zephyrians. He looked like a cross between an octopus and a jellyfish, his translucent body floating in a tank of liquid that his ship projected as a hologram. When he spoke, his tentacles moved in patterns that the translation systems struggled to interpret. We offer manufactured goods, raw materials, and advanced technologies in exchange for simple commodities and labor agreements. Your people work hard, we have heard. This is valuable in galactic commerce. Captain Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral after her victory over the Corvins, studied the trade contracts that the Nexari presented. They were incredibly complex documents, hundreds of pages long and filled with clauses that seemed to contradict each other. I'm not an economist, she told the negotiating team, but this looks like a fancy way to make us their slaves, Dr. Vasquez agreed. Look at Clause 47. They're offering to provide raw materials for our ship construction, but Clause 93 says we have to sell them finished products at below-market rates, and Clause 128 gives them exclusive rights to all our shipping routes. It's a debt trap, said Economics Minister Park. They provide just enough help to make us dependent, then gradually take control of our entire economy. President Martinez rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. So the Zephyrians want us to be their soldiers, and the Nexari want us to be their workers. What's next? As if summoned by his words, the third contact came not as a fleet, but as a single massive ship that materialized in Earth's solar system without any warning. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than anything the humans had built, and its black hull seemed to absorb light like a hole in space. The ship broadcast a simple message: surrender immediately, or face annihilation. You have insulted the Corvin Federation. This insult requires blood. Admiral Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the massive alien warship. It was easily large enough to carry thousands of fighters and enough firepower to level continents. This was what a real Corvin war vessel looked like. How long until our new ships are ready? She asked her chief engineer. The first batch won't be finished for another month, Commander Torres replied. The new designs are still being tested. We don't have a month. Morrison turned to her communications officer. Send a message to all Earth ships. Full scramble. Everything we have. Admiral, our entire fleet is only 12 ships. That thing could probably destroy us without even slowing down. Probably. But we're not going to make it easy. The Corvin ship, named Terror of the Void, was indeed a vessel designed to break the will of entire star systems. Its commander, High Admiral Thekvar, had overseen the conquest of 17 different species. He had come to Earth expecting to find a cowering population ready to surrender rather than face his ship's terrible weapons. Instead, he found the humans preparing for battle. "They're actually going to fight us," his tactical officer reported, with amazement. "Their entire fleet is moving to intercept." Fools. Thekvar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "They learned nothing from our previous encounter. Show them the power of a true Corvin warship." The Terror of the Void opened fire with its primary weapons, massive particle beams that could slice through asteroid fields. The first shots missed, as the human ships scattered in all directions, but Thekvar was not concerned. There was nowhere for them to run, but the humans were not running. Admiral Morrison had studied every detail of the first battle, and she thought she understood what made humans different from other species in the galaxy. Other races fought according to rules and traditions. Humans made up new rules as they went along. "All ships implement Plan Crazy," she broadcast. Plan Crazy was not actually a formal military strategy. It was what Morrison called their backup. Plan for when everything else failed, and they had to try something desperate. The UES Defiance led the charge directly at the Corvin supership, followed by 3 other human vessels. They flew straight into the enemy's weapons fire, taking hits that would have destroyed lesser ships. But the new human armor held, and they kept coming. At the last possible moment, all 4 ships fired their entire missile loads and then used their emergency thrusters to veer away from the alien vessel. Hundreds of nuclear warheads struck the Terror of the Void's hull in a coordinated attack that lit up space like a new sun. When the explosions cleared, the Corvin ship was still there, but its armor was cracked and burning atmosphere leaked from dozens of holes. "Impossible," Thekvar snarled. "No one has ever damaged a Terror-class warship with primitive nuclear weapons." "Sir, they're attacking again." "They fight like madmen," the tactical officer reported. "No formation, no coordination, no discipline." But Thekvar was beginning to understand. The humans did have coordination, just not the kind that the Corvins were used to. Instead of a hive mind controlling every ship, each human captain was making their own decisions while somehow supporting the overall attack. It was chaos, but it was directed chaos. The Terror of the Void fired everything it had, filling space with energy beams and plasma bolts. Several human ships took serious damage, but they kept fighting. One vessel, the UES Courage, had lost half, its hull to a direct hit, but it still managed to ram a full spread of missiles into the Corvin ship's engine section. "Hull breaches on decks 40 through 60, the damage control officer reported. "Primary weapons offline, engine output down to 30%. Thekvar could not believe what he was hearing. 8 small human ships had crippled his mighty warship. How was this possible? The answer came when the human fleet regrouped for a final attack. Instead of charging in again, they positioned themselves around the Terror of the Void and began firing in carefully coordinated salvos. Each shot hit the same weak points that the previous attacks had created, gradually tearing the massive ship apart piece by piece. "Sir, we have to retreat," his second-in-command urged. "If we stay here, they'll destroy us." Thekvar's mandibles clicked in frustrated rage, but he was not stupid. "Signal withdrawal. Full retreat to the jump point." The Terror of the Void limped away from Earth, leaving behind debris from its damaged sections and the shattered remains of its reputation. For the second time, the humans had defeated a Corvin fleet, but this victory came with a cost. 3 human ships had been destroyed, and 2 more were so badly damaged they would need months of repairs. Earth's entire space fleet was reduced to 7 functional vessels. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the casualty reports. 43 good people had died defending their world, and she knew this was just the beginning. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving messages from the alien fleets. All 3 of them want to talk." Morrison sighed. The Zephyrians were probably going to increase their offers of protection. The Nexari would want to sell them replacement ships at inflated prices. And the Corvins would be planning their revenge. Put them through. Let's see what they have to say now. The main screen split into 3 sections, showing the representatives of all 3 galactic powers. Ambassador Veltar's energy form pulsed with what might have been respect. Trade Prince Kex Mura's tentacles writhed with excitement. And High Admiral Thekvar's compound eyes glowed with rage. "Humans of Earth," Veltar spoke first. "Your prowess in battle has impressed the Empire. We would like to revise our previous offer of protection. Perhaps a more equal partnership could be arranged. The collective is prepared to offer premium rates for your military services," Kex Mura added quickly. "Many species would pay well for the protection of human warships." "You have won 2 battles," Thekvar interrupted, his voice dripping with hatred. "But the Federation has fleets that number in the thousands. Your luck will not hold forever." Admiral Morrison looked at the 3 aliens and felt a moment of perfect clarity. They were all afraid. The ancient powers that had controlled the galaxy for centuries were suddenly uncertain, and humanity was the cause of that uncertainty. "Gentlemen," she said, using the term loosely, "you seem to be under the impression that we want to join your war. You're wrong. We don't want to be your protectors, your workers, or your enemies. We want to be left alone to build our own future." "That is not possible," Veltar replied. "The galaxy does not allow for neutrality. You must choose a side, or others will choose for you." Morrison smiled, and all 3 aliens recognized it as the expression humans made when they were about to do something dangerous. "Then I guess we'll have to change how the galaxy works." The transmission ended, leaving the 3 alien fleets to contemplate humanity's response. In the depths of space, ancient powers began to realize that their carefully ordered universe was about to become much more complicated. On Earth, the real work was just beginning. 6 months after the first contact with the galactic powers, humanity had changed the rules of war in ways that no one expected. The aliens thought they understood how space battles worked, but humans kept proving them wrong. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching his target through the tactical display. The Corvin supply convoy stretched across space like a chain of metal beads, 30 cargo ships protected by 12 warships. It should have been impossible for a single human vessel to threaten such a force. But Rodriguez was not planning a traditional attack. "Range to target?" he asked his weapons officer. 40,000 kilometers in closing. "They've detected us, sir. The escort ships are moving to intercept." "Perfect. Let them come." The Indomitable was one of Earth's new ships, built using lessons learned from captured alien technology. It was faster than anything the Corvins had, and its weapons were designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in enemy armor. But its real advantage was something the aliens could not build into their ships, a crew that thought for itself. "All stop," Rodriguez ordered. "Let them think we're surrendering." The Corvin escort ships approached carefully, their formation perfect and their weapons charged. Through their hive-mind connection, they shared a single thought: capture the human vessel and learn its secrets. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Now," Rodriguez said quietly. The Indomitable did not fire its weapons. Instead, it released a cloud of tiny objects that looked like debris on Corvin sensors. The enemy ships ignored them, focusing on the human vessel that appeared to be dead. In space. The objects were not debris. They were humans in spacesuits, each one carrying a fusion charge and a thruster pack. Lieutenant Sarah Kim felt her heart pounding as she guided her suit toward the nearest Corvin ship. This was insane, even by human standards. No military in the galaxy used infantry tactics in space combat. The aliens would never see it coming. "Boarding teams, sound off," Rodriguez's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Team Alpha in position. Team Beta ready. Team Charlie standing by." 40 humans in powered armor attached themselves to the hulls of the Corvin escort ships. They used magnetic clamps and plasma cutters to breach the enemy hulls, then slipped inside like ghosts. The Corvin crews never knew what hit them. The hive mind was used to sharing information instantly between all members, but it was not designed to handle the chaos that humans brought with them. Suddenly, 12 ships were reporting borders in different locations, all moving in unpredictable patterns and using weapons that the Corvins had never seen before. "Engine room secured," Kim reported as her team finished placing charges throughout the escort ship's power systems. 30 seconds to detonation. All around the convoy, similar reports came in. The humans were not trying to capture the ships. They were sabotaging them from the inside, then escaping before the explosions destroyed everything. "All teams, extraction." "In 10 seconds," Rodriguez announced. The boarding teams activated their emergency thrusters and shot away from the Corvin ships just as the fusion charges detonated. 12 escort vessels exploded almost simultaneously, leaving the cargo ships defenseless. But Rodriguez was not finished. "Launch missiles. Target the cargo holds, not the ships themselves." The Indomitable fired a spread of precision warheads that struck each cargo vessel in exactly the right place. The ships were not destroyed, but their cargo holds were breached, spilling supplies into the vacuum of space. "Mission accomplished," Rodriguez announced to his crew. "The Corvins just lost 6 months' worth of supplies for their border fleets, and they have no idea how we did it." This was the new kind of warfare that humans had brought to the galaxy. They did not fight for territory or glory. They fought to disrupt, to confuse, to make their enemies question everything they thought they knew about combat. The operation that became known as the Broken Chain Campaign lasted for 3 months and completely changed how the galaxy viewed human military capabilities. Captain Rodriguez and his team of ships did not attack major Corvin strongholds or try to capture territory. Instead, they targeted the Federation's supply lines, communication networks, and industrial facilities. They destroyed food convoys heading to Corvin colonies, leaving entire worlds hungry. They sabotaged the quantum communication arrays that allowed the hive mind to coordinate across vast distances. They raided shipyards and manufacturing plants, always striking where the enemy least expected them. Most importantly, they rescued prisoners. The Corvins had been enslaving other species for centuries, using them as workers in their industrial complexes. Human strike teams liberated these prison camps with a ferocity that shocked even their enemies. When the freed slaves told stories of human soldiers who fought like demons to save strangers, the reputation of Earth's military spread across the galaxy. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of Luna Base, studying reports from across human space. In 6 months, they had gone from 8 working ships to a fleet of 40 vessels, all built using a combination of human innovation and captured alien technology. "The Corvins are pulling back from 3 sectors," reported Colonel Park, her intelligence chief. "They can't maintain their forward positions without the supplies that Rodriguez's team keeps destroying." "What about the Zephyrians and Nixari?" "Both sides are getting nervous. The Zephyrians have started offering better terms for alliance. And the Nixari are actually sending us free samples of their technology. They want to stay on our good side." Chen nodded, but she was not satisfied. "We're winning tactically, but strategically we're still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. If the 3 powers ever decide to work together against us, we're finished." "They won't," said Dr. Vasquez, who had joined the meeting to report on her research projects. "They've been enemies for too long. The moment one of them looks weak, the other 2 will attack." "What's the status on the new technologies?" Dr. Vasquez smiled, and Chen recognized the expression. It was the same look that her daughter got when she had built something that she was particularly proud of. "We've had some interesting breakthroughs. It turns out that combining human engineering with alien science produces results that none of the original species could achieve alone. Want to see?" Chen followed the scientist to her laboratory, which had been expanded to fill 3 levels, of the Luna Base complex. The place hummed with activity as teams of human researchers worked alongside carefully selected alien refugees and defectors. The first thing Chen noticed was a small insect-like creature working at a computer terminal, alongside a human technician. It looked like a Corvin, but its movements were different somehow. "That's 7 of thousands," Dr. Vasquez explained. She's a Corvin who somehow developed individual consciousness instead of being controlled by the hive mind. When Rodriguez's team rescued her from a prison camp, she asked to join our research program. A Corvin working for us? Working with us, Vasquez corrected. 7 has been invaluable in helping us understand Corvin technology. And she's not the only one. We have volunteers from all 3 major species now. Chen studied the alien researcher more carefully. 7 of thousands moved with purpose and curiosity, examining data and asking questions. It was hard to believe that she belonged to the same species as the mindless drones that had attacked Earth. How is that possible? We're not sure yet. 7 says that some Corvins are born with defective hive mind connections. Usually they're killed or exiled, but she managed to hide her condition and survive. The interesting thing is that once she was free from the hive mind's influence, she became incredibly creative and innovative. Dr. Vasquez led Chen to another section of the lab, where a team was working on what looked like a fusion reactor, but with modifications that Chen did not recognize. This is our power systems team, Vasquez explained. We're combining human fusion technology with Zephyrian energy manipulation and Nexari materials science. The result is a power source that's 3 times more efficient than anything any of us could build alone. And the other powers don't know about this? They can't imagine it. Each species thinks their way is the best way. The idea of combining different approaches is literally inconceivable to them. Chen watched the mixed teams working together, humans and aliens sharing ideas and building on each other's knowledge. It was the kind of cooperation that the galaxy had never seen before. How long until we can put this technology into production? The first prototype ships should be ready in 2 months. After that, it's just a matter of scaling up manufacturing. Chen felt a surge of hope. Maybe humanity could survive after all. But their success was not going unnoticed. In the crystal palaces of the Zephyrian Empire, Emperor Luxandra studied reports of human activities with growing concern. His energy form flickered with patterns that his advisors recognized as deep thought. These humans are becoming dangerous, he said to his war council. Not because of their military strength, but because of their ideas. My lord? Asked General Fortum, his most trusted military advisor. They are convincing members of other species to work with them as equals. This is a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. If other races begin to believe that they do not need our guidance, should we crush them before they spread this poison further? The Emperor considered this for a long moment. Not yet. First, we must understand how they achieve such cooperation. Perhaps their methods can be adapted to serve the Empire. In the trading halls of the Nexari Collective, similar conversations were taking place. Trade Prince Kex Mura floated in his tank, his tentacles writhing with agitation as he studied profit reports. The humans are disrupting our business model, he announced to his council of merchants. They share technology freely instead of selling it. They rescue slaves instead of buying them. They treat other species as partners instead of customers. Should we cut off trade with them? Asked one of his advisors. No, their technology is too valuable and their military is too dangerous. But we must find a way to control them before they destroy the economic systems that keep the galaxy stable. Deep in Corvin space, the response was more direct. War leader Prime Vectar stood before the assembled commanders of the Federation's main battle fleets. His massive form dominated the chamber, his chitinous armor scarred from 100 battles. The humans have humiliated us twice, he declared, his voice carrying the authority of the hive mind itself. They have disrupted our supply lines and freed our workers. They have shown other species that the Federation can be defeated. What are your orders, War Leader Prime? Asked one of the fleet commanders. Gather all available ships. Call in every favor and alliance we have. The humans think they can change the galaxy with their small fleet and their strange ideas. We will show them the price of defying the Federation. What if the Zephyrians or Nexari interfere? Vektar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. Let them try. Once we crush the humans, the other powers will remember why they fear us. The largest military force in Corvan history began to assemble in the depths of space. 3,000 ships, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. It was a fleet designed to end the human threat once and for all. But on Earth, humanity was not waiting passively for the next attack. Captain Rodriguez had returned from his latest mission to find the entire planet transformed. Shipyards that had been under construction were now online and producing vessels at an incredible rate. The new ships incorporated technologies from all three alien species, but they were unmistakably human in design. "How many ships do we have now?" he asked Admiral Chen during his debriefing. 80 combat vessels, with more coming online every week, plus support ships, civilian transports, and the new colony ships. Colony ships? Chen smiled. We're not just defending Earth anymore, Marcus. We're expanding. 12 human colonies are already established, with more planned. If they want to fight us, they'll have to find us first. Rodriguez studied the star charts showing human expansion. The colonies were not clustered together like most species preferred. Instead, they were scattered across a vast region of space, each one supporting the others but capable of independent survival. "It's a good strategy," he admitted, "but when the Corvans come back, they'll bring everything they have." "I know. That's why we're not going to be here when they arrive." Chen activated a holographic display showing the current positions of all major alien fleets. Red icons marked Corvan forces, blue showed Zephyrian ships, and green indicated Nexari vessels. "Our intelligence suggests that the Corvans are massing for a major assault on Earth. The other two powers are watching and waiting to see what happens. If the Corvans destroy us, they'll divide up our territory. If we somehow win, they'll probably try to ally with us. So what's the plan? We're going to give them something they don't expect. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, we're going to attack all three of them at the same time." Rodriguez stared at her. "Admiral, that's completely insane." "I know," Chen replied. "That's why it might just work." The war that everyone expected never came. Instead, something unprecedented happened in the galaxy's long history. The old order began to crumble from within. It started when 7 of thousands broadcast a message across Corvan space. The transmission was brief, but its impact was enormous. For the first time in their species' history, a Corvan spoke as an individual rather than as part of the hive mind. "I am 7 of thousands, and I choose freedom," she said, her voice carrying across 1,000 worlds. "The hive mind tells you that we are nothing without the collective. This is a lie. We can think. We can choose. We can be more than drones." The message should have been impossible to broadcast. Corvan communication networks were controlled by the hive mind, and no individual should have been able to access them. But Seven had help from human hackers and Nexari communication specialists who had learned to work together. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across Corvan space. Individual Corvans were beginning to question their orders. Some were refusing to follow hive mind directives. A few were even helping captured slaves escape. War leader Prime Vektar felt the disturbance rippling through the collective consciousness, like a virus. "Impossible," he snarled. "Individual thought is a genetic defect. It cannot spread." But it was spreading. Not through genetics, but through something the Corvans had never encountered before. The simple idea that they had a choice. The effects were not limited to Corvan space. In the Zephyrian Empire, younger energy beings began questioning why they needed to guide lesser species instead of learning from them. Some even started visiting human colonies in secret, fascinated by the concept of cooperation between equals. Lord Zefkan was one of these younger Zephyrians. His energy form flickered with excitement as he materialized on the human colony of New Geneva, where refugees from all three major species lived and worked together. "This is remarkable," he said to Dr. Vasquez, who was overseeing the colony's research center. "Your people share knowledge freely, even with former enemies. How is this possible?" "Because we learned something important," she replied, watching as a human engineer worked alongside a reformed Corvin and a young Zephyrian to design a new type of spacecraft engine. "Competition makes you stronger, but cooperation makes you unstoppable." Zefkan observed the mixed team for hours, amazed by how they built on each other's ideas instead of trying to prove their own superiority. When they encountered a problem that none of them could solve alone, they found a solution by combining their different approaches. "Your empire would call this chaos," he said finally. "Maybe, but it works." As word of these experiments in cooperation spread, more aliens began visiting human colonies. They came as refugees, researchers, traders, and simple curiosity seekers. What they found challenged everything they had been taught about how different species should interact. The Nexari were particularly affected. Their entire economy was based on controlling trade and creating artificial scarcity. But humans shared resources freely within their communities and traded fairly with outsiders. This approach should have led to economic collapse, but instead, it created unprecedented prosperity. Trade Prince Keksamura found himself in the strange position of losing money while his customers became wealthier. Human colonies were developing their own industries instead of depending on Nexari imports. Even worse, they were teaching other species to do the same. "This is catastrophic for our business model," he announced to his fellow trade princes. "If every species becomes self-sufficient, what will they need us for?" "Perhaps," suggested Trade Prince Yiltheta, who had been spending time studying human economic systems. "We need a new business model." The other trade princes stared at her in shock. Yiltheta was known for her conservative views and traditional methods. The idea that she would suggest changing their fundamental approach to commerce was unprecedented. "What do you mean?" Keksamura asked carefully. "I mean that the humans have shown us something we never considered. Instead of profiting from scarcity and dependence, we could profit from abundance and partnership. Help our customers succeed, and they will have more resources to trade with us." It was a radical concept that would have been dismissed immediately under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. The old ways were failing, and even the most traditional Nexari were beginning to consider alternatives. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen was dealing with a crisis of success. Human space was expanding so rapidly that it was becoming difficult to maintain communication and coordination between colonies. "We have 43 colonies now, with 12 more planned for next month," reported Colonel Park. "Our population is spreading across a volume of space larger than any single alien empire." "That's good for our survival, but bad for our unity," Chen replied. "We need to maintain human values and cooperation while allowing each colony to develop independently." The solution came from an unexpected source. 7 of thousands had been working with human sociologists to develop new forms of government that could function across interstellar distances. Her unique perspective as a former Hive Mind member gave her insights into both collective decision-making and individual freedom. "The key is voluntary association," she explained during a conference call with colony leaders from across human space. "Each community chooses to participate in the larger human civilization, but they are not forced to do so. This creates unity through shared values rather than imposed control." Captain Rodriguez, who was attending the meeting from his flagship, nodded in agreement. "It's like our military tactics. Each ship works independently, but they all support the same goal." The new system of governance that emerged from these discussions was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human colonies were linked by shared principles and mutual aid, but each one was free to develop its own culture and approaches to local problems. Decisions that affected all of humanity were made through a complex process of consultation and consensus building that could take months to complete. It should have been inefficient and chaotic. Instead, it proved to be incredibly adaptive and resilient. When Corvan raiders attacked the colony of New Harmony, 17 other human settlements immediately sent aid without being ordered to do so. When a plague struck the mining colony of Titan's Rest, researchers from across human space collaborated to develop a cure in record time. The aliens watched these developments with growing alarm and fascination. The three great powers had maintained their dominance by keeping other species divided and dependent, but humans were proving that cooperation could be more powerful than control. The crisis came when a joint task force of Zephyrian, Corvan, and Nexari ships arrived at the edge of human space. It was the first time in centuries that the three powers had worked together, and their combined fleet numbered over 500 vessels. Admiral Chen received their ultimatum while aboard the UES Terra, the newest and most advanced ship in the human fleet. The alien commanders appeared on her main screen, their faces showing a unity of purpose that she found more frightening than any individual threat. "People of Earth," spoke Emperor Luxandra for the Zephyrians, "your influence has grown beyond acceptable limits. You are disrupting the stability of galactic civilization. Your economic practices are destroying established trade relationships," added Trade Prince Kexmura. "This cannot be allowed to continue." War Leader Prime Vector finished the ultimatum. "You will submit to joint administration by our three governments, or you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic order." Chen looked at the three alien leaders and felt a moment of perfect clarity. This was what they had really been afraid of all along. Not human military power, but human ideas. "You want to know why you're really here?" she asked them. "It's because your own people are starting to think for themselves, and that terrifies you." "Absurd," Luxandra replied, but his energy form flickered with uncertainty. "Is it? How many Corvans have broken free from the hive mind in the last month? How many young Zephyrians are questioning why they need to control other species? How many Nexari are wondering if there might be better ways to create prosperity?" The silence that followed was telling. Chen could see the truth in their expressions, even through the various translation systems and energy forms. "You're not here to stop a human invasion," she continued. "You're here to stop a revolution of ideas. But here's the thing about ideas. You can't kill them with warships." "We can kill the people who spread them," Vector snarled. "You can try. But we're not the same species you attacked a year ago. We've learned from you, adapted your technologies, and improved on them. More importantly, we're not alone anymore." As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships were emerging from hyperspace all around the combined alien fleet, but these were not human vessels. Lord Zephcon commanded a squadron of Zephyrian ships crewed by energy beings who had chosen cooperation over domination. 7 of thousands led a fleet of free Corvans who had broken away from the hive mind. Trade Prince Yiltheta brought Nexari vessels filled with aliens who believed in fair trade and mutual prosperity. "Impossible," whispered Luxandra. "They would never rebel against their own kind." "They're not rebelling," Chen corrected. "They're evolving. They've seen that there's a better way to live, and they're choosing it freely." The combined human and alien fleet now outnumbered the official task force by almost 2-to-1. But more importantly, they represented something new in the galaxy's history. A truly multi-species alliance based on shared values rather than conquest or control. Captain Rodriguez, commanding the mixed squadron of human and free Corvan ships, opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet. "This is your final warning. Leave human space immediately or face the consequences." War Leader Prime Vector's mandibles clicked with rage. "You think these defectors and rebels can stand against the true powers of the galaxy? I will show you the cost of defiance." The Corvan war leader ordered his ships to attack, but something unprecedented happened. Nearly half of his fleet hesitated. Individual Corvins throughout the invasion force were making their own decisions about whether to follow orders, and many of them chose not to. The battle that followed was unlike any conflict in galactic history. It was not a clash between different species, but between different philosophies. On one side were those who believed in hierarchy, control, and the dominance of the strong over the weak. On the other were those who believed in cooperation, freedom, and the strength that came from unity in diversity. The old powers had superior numbers and more advanced weapons, but they could not overcome the chaos that individual thinking had introduced into their ranks. Corvin ships broke formation as their crews argued about orders. Zephyrian vessels flickered with uncertainty as their captains questioned the righteousness of their cause. Even some Nexari traders began to wonder if they were on the wrong side. Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold and realized that humanity had already won the most important victory. They had not just defended their territory, they had changed the galaxy itself. "All ships, cease fire," she ordered when it became clear that the enemy fleet was in complete disarray. "Admiral?" asked her tactical officer. "The fighting is over. Now comes the hard part." Chen opened a channel to all ships, both friendly and hostile. "This is Admiral Chen of the human space fleet. To those who wish to continue the old ways of control and conquest, you are free to leave. But to those who want to build something better, something based on cooperation and mutual respect, you are welcome to stay and help us create a new future for the galaxy." It was an offer that would change everything. 3 years after the failed invasion, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before humanity stepped into the ancient conflict. The old order had not collapsed overnight, but it had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the central chamber of Research Station Alpha, a massive facility that orbited the neutron star designated as Beacon 1. Around her, beings from dozens of different species worked together on the most ambitious project ever, attempted, decoding the final message of the progenitors. The research station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human structural design provided the framework, Zephyrian energy systems powered everything, Corvin computational networks processed data, and Nexari materials science made it all possible. But it was not just the technology that made the station remarkable. It was the fact that former enemies now worked side by side as equals. "Any progress on the quantum resonance patterns?" Vasquez asked Seven of Thousands, who had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on progenitor technology. "The mathematical structures are becoming clearer," the Free Corvin replied, her individual consciousness allowing her to see patterns that the hive mind had never been able to recognize. "But I believe we need Lord Zefcon's insights into energy manipulation to make the final breakthrough." Vasquez nodded and walked over to where the young Zephyrian was working with a team of human physicists. His energy form flickered with excitement as he studied the data streams flowing across multiple displays. "Dr. Vasquez," he said without looking away from his work, "I think we have found something extraordinary. The progenitors did not just leave us a message. They left us a warning. The discovery that followed would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about its own history." The progenitor artifact, which had been found by the mixed crew led by Captain Rodriguez during one of his raids, contained detailed records of an ancient war that had consumed entire galactic civilizations. The progenitors had not been the first sentient species to achieve interstellar travel. They had been the last survivors of a galactic community that spanned millions of worlds and hundreds of different species. That community had been destroyed by something that came from beyond the galaxy itself, a force so alien and hostile that the progenitors could only describe it as the Hunger. According to these records, Vasquez explained to the Emergency Council that had assembled representatives from across the new Galactic Alliance, the Hunger appears every 50,000 years. It consumes entire galaxies, stripping them of all life and energy before moving on to the next target. General Kim, who had been promoted to head of the Joint Military Command, studied the tactical data with growing alarm. When is it supposed to return? Soon, replied Zefcon, his energy form dimming with worry. The mathematical models suggest that we have less than 5 years before the first scouts arrive. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence as they absorbed the implications. The wars they had been fighting for centuries suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the threat that was approaching. Trade. Prince Yiltheta was the first to speak. The progenitors faced this threat before. How did they survive? They didn't, 7 of thousands answered bluntly. According to the records, they managed to hide a few colonies in distant parts of the galaxy, but their civilization was essentially destroyed. The survivors spent the next 40,000 years rebuilding, only to face the hunger again when it returned. And then? Asked Admiral Chen. The cycle repeated. Each time, the galaxy was devastated. Each time, a few survivors managed to hide or escape. The progenitors were the last to try to break the cycle. Dr. Vasquez activated a holographic display showing the final section of the progenitor message. The image was of a massive starship, larger than anything any current species had ever built. But it was not designed for war. This was their solution, she explained. A generation ship designed to carry the genetic patterns and cultural knowledge of every species in the galaxy. When the hunger came, the ship would flee to another galaxy and wait for it to pass. Did it work? General Kim asked. We don't know. The ship launched just before the final attack, but there's no record of what happened to it. Emperor Luxandra, who had been listening in brooding silence, finally spoke. So our choice is to hide or to run. Is there no way to fight this threat? Vasquez looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Actually, there might be. The progenitors tried to face the hunger using the same approach that had worked for millions of years, each species fighting separately, using their own methods and technologies. But we have something they never had. What's that? Asked Captain Rodriguez, who had been studying the tactical implications of the data. Us. All of us, working together. It was Admiral Chen who understood first. You're talking about a unified defense, not just an alliance, but true integration of all our capabilities? Exactly. The progenitors never figured out how to combine different approaches to technology and strategy. They remained separate even when they tried to cooperate, but we've proven that different species can work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The debate that followed lasted for weeks. Some argued for building generation ships and fleeing to another galaxy. Others wanted to try hiding in remote corners of space, hoping the hunger would pass them by. But gradually, a consensus emerged around a third option, standing and fighting, but doing it together in ways that no galactic civilization had ever attempted. The project that emerged from these discussions dwarfed anything that had been attempted in galactic history. Every species contributed their best technology and knowledge to the creation of an integrated defense network that spanned the entire galaxy. Human adaptability and innovation provided the central coordination systems. Zephyrian energy manipulation created shields that could protect entire star systems. Corvin computational power linked everything together through quantum networks that operated faster than light. Nexari materials, science-built structures that could withstand forces that would crack planets. But it was not just about technology. The real breakthrough came when the different species began to train together, learning each other's methods and approaches to problem-solving. Human flexibility combined with Corvin precision. Zephyrian wisdom merged with Nexari practicality. General David Kim found himself commanding fleets that would have been impossible to imagine just a few years earlier. Human ships with Zephyrian energy shields worked alongside reformed Corvin vessels equipped with hybrid human-alien weapons. The crews were mixed as well, with beings from different species serving together not just as allies, but as true partners. "The integration is proceeding faster than anyone expected," he reported to the Joint Command Council. "Our combined capabilities are exceeding all projections." "What about the military exercises?" asked Admiral Chen. "Remarkable. The mixed crews are developing tactics that none of our species could have conceived alone. When human unpredictability combines with Corvan coordination and Zephyrian energy mastery, the results are unprecedented." The first test of the new unified forces came when long-range sensors detected something approaching from the void between galaxies. It was not the main force of the hunger, but rather a scouting expedition sent ahead to assess the galaxy's defenses. The scout ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They seemed to be made of some kind of dark matter that absorbed energy and twisted space around them. Traditional weapons had no effect, and conventional shields offered no protection. But the integrated defense fleet was not conventional. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding a mixed human Corvan Zephyrian squadron, led the first engagement with the alien scouts. His ships used tactics that combined human boarding actions with Corvan swarm coordination and Zephyrian energy manipulation. "Target the void ships with quantum resonance torpedoes," he ordered, using weapons that had been developed by combining technologies from all four major species. "Corvan ships, maintain formation pattern 7. Zephyrian vessels, channel energy through the resonance field." The battle that followed demonstrated the power of true cooperation. The human ships provided unpredictable movement patterns that confused the enemy. The Corvan vessels maintained perfect coordination while adapting to rapidly changing conditions. The Zephyrian ships channeled energy in ways that disrupted the alien vessels' dark matter composition. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Scouts of the Hunger were defeated. But the victory came with a cost. The alien ships transmitted a final message before being destroyed, sending information about the galaxy's defenses back to the main force. "They know we're here," Rodriguez reported to the Joint Command. "And they know we can fight back." Dr. Vasquez studied the data from the battle with growing excitement. "This is actually good news," she announced to the surprised council. "The Hunger has never faced unified resistance before. They're used to dealing with fragmented civilizations that fight separately. Our integrated approach confused them." "How can you tell?" asked General Kim. "Look at their attack patterns. They tried to isolate and destroy individual ships, the same tactics that worked against divided enemies. But when our ships supported each other and combined their capabilities, the aliens had no effective counter-strategy. 7 of thousands, who had been analyzing the quantum signatures left by the destroyed scout ships, made an even more significant discovery. "The enemy vessels show signs of standardized construction," she reported. "They are not adapting their technology or tactics. They are using the same methods that worked 50,000 years ago. Which means they're vulnerable to something they've never encountered before," Chen realized. "True galactic unity." The preparations for the main battle intensified. Across the galaxy, former enemies worked together to build the most sophisticated defense network ever conceived. Artificial intelligence systems that combined human creativity with Corvan logic coordinated resources across millions of worlds. Zephyrian energy barriers protected entire sectors of space. Nexari trade networks ensured that every system had the supplies it needed. But perhaps most importantly, the different species were learning to think as one while maintaining their individual strengths. When the main force of the Hunger finally arrived at the edge of the galaxy, they found something that had never existed before in their long history of conquest. A unified civilization that was stronger because of its diversity, not despite it. The final battle lasted for months and ranged across hundreds of star systems. The Hunger brought weapons that could unravel matter at the quantum level and ships that existed partially outside normal space-time. They had destroyed 1,000 galactic civilizations using these tools. But they had never faced an enemy that could adapt in real time, combining technologies and strategies in ways that their ancient programming could not predict or counter. Human innovation found weaknesses in defenses that had seemed impenetrable. Corvan persistence wore down enemies that had never been challenged for long periods. Zephyrian energy mastery neutralized weapons that had cracked planets. Nexari resource management kept the defensive fleets supplied and operational across impossible distances. When the last of the Hunger's ships finally retreated back into the void between galaxies, they left behind something unprecedented, a galaxy that had not just survived their assault, but had grown stronger through the experience of defending itself. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Unity, the flagship of the Integrated Galactic Fleet, and watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. Around her, beings from dozens of different species worked together with an efficiency and harmony that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. "Status report," she requested. "All sectors reporting all clear," came the reply from Seven of Thousands, who was coordinating communications across the galaxy's defense network. "The enemy has withdrawn completely." "Damage assessment?" "Surprisingly light," reported General Kim. "The integrated defensive systems performed better than our most optimistic projections. We lost less than 5% of our total fleet strength." Chen nodded, but she was not ready to celebrate yet. "What about the long-term threat? Will they return?" Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the enemy's retreat, provided the answer. "The quantum signatures suggest that they're not just withdrawing, they're fleeing. I don't think they know how to deal with a unified galaxy. Their entire strategy is based on exploiting division and weakness. So we've broken the cycle? Maybe. Or maybe we've just created a new one. Instead of a galaxy that gets consumed, every 50,000 years, we now have a galaxy that can defend itself and grow stronger with each challenge." Lord Zephcon, his energy form bright with satisfaction, added his own observation. "The progenitors left us a warning about the hunger, but they also left us something else, the inspiration to try a different approach. Instead of running or hiding, we chose to stand together." Trade Prince Yiltheta's tentacles writhed with what her species considered deep contentment. "And the economic benefits of this cooperation will last for millennia. When species work together instead of competing, everyone prospers." Captain Rodriguez, who had led the final assault that drove off the enemy scouts, summed up what everyone was thinking. "So what do we do now?" Admiral Chen looked around at her mixed crew, then out at the stars that now held a galaxy transformed by cooperation instead of conquest. "Now we build something that the galaxy has never seen before," she said. "A civilization based on the idea that our differences make us stronger, not weaker, and we make sure that no force, from this galaxy or beyond, ever threatens that principle. Again." The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. For the first time in galactic history, different species were not just surviving together. They were thriving together, creating a future that none of them could have achieved alone. And in the depths of space, on research stations and colonies and ships that carried the dreams of 100 different species, beings who had once been enemies now worked side by side to build something unprecedented. A galaxy united not by conquest, but by choice. The old powers had finally learned the lesson that humanity had tried to teach them from the beginning, that cooperation was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all.